Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me as I show you how to create this floral rondelle necklace. It can really have tons of different looks and variations depending on how you go in and embellish the bottom of the right angle weave, the top of it, and how you use your beads in the design. I can't wait to see everybody's. If you need any materials, go along the bottom of the video in the description, click on that show more button and get the link to come to our site. Gather up all your materials and get ready to get started. So this design has tons of modifications that can be made. I'm going to be making one based on Cheryl's design here using some rondelles. And these are Potomac picked rondelles that we have a bunch of these gem cut rondelles in the 3x5mm size. I'm going to be using a couple different colors. We're going to begin with the necklace with right angle weave. You can see the rondelles here in that right angle shape. We're going to add our wire guards and then we're going to come back through and decorate. This can work for a bracelet, it can work for a necklace. For the necklace, we're going to be adding beads to the top so that way we have that rounded shape. So the first thing you're going to need to do is pick out your rondelles. I'm using a couple different colors in my piece, a different one for the base, different ones for the middle, and a different one for the top. I have a size 10 beading needle with some white size 8 dragon thread. 2 sizes of seed beads, a 15-0 and 11-0, but initially we're not going to use any. You will want to have your wire guards ready to go. And the nice thing about this design is if you want to, you can actually use magnets and then change it out that you can make it into a necklace or a bracelet, adding chain or not adding chain. So just a couple little options before you get started to think about in the design. Again, we're going to begin with our right angle weave and we'll go from there. So I've got 3 colors of rondelles laid out here, and I actually have a 4th that's very close in color. So what I'm going to do is cut that apart, also mix them together, those 2 amethysts. You can see you can also do them with 1 color if you want to. Cheryl used this lovely Potomac pick of the Ocean Swirl Rondelles. Again, through the middle of the design, I am going to be putting the dark purple. Through the bottom of the design will go the light purple. And then the top of the design will have this nice topaz-y color. So we're going to begin with our first right angle weave. The right angle weave is going to consist of basically 1 of each color bead. We're going to start off with our purple, which is going to be our bead number 1 on the side there. Then we're going to go with our light purple, another one of the amethyst, and then our smoky quartz color. Let that drop down next to a stop bead that I've added at the base of the thread. And we're going to sew back through bead number 1, 2, and 3, and come out prior to bead number 4. Give a nice tight pull. You can put bead number 4 right on the top there. That's your top of your right angle unit. I'm going to bring the camera in now even closer a little bit, get that focus going so that way you can continue to see the design. We're going to add another top bead, which is going to be our topaz color. We're going to add another middle bead, or the beads that sit with the holes straight up and down. And we're going to add another base bead. Our thread's currently coming out the top of our amethyst rondelle. We're going to go into the bottom of the amethyst rondelle after adding those 3 beads. From here, I need to get over to the right-hand side of that right angle unit. I'm going to sew through the top bead, which is going to be that topaz bead. And then I'm also going to sew down through the amethyst bead on the right-hand side. When it comes to right angle weave, you always want your thread and needle exiting through the rightmost bead. From here, now we're coming out the bottom of the amethyst bead. On goes the lilac color, then another amethyst for the side, and then the topaz. We're coming out the bottom, so we're going to go into the top this time. Every other one for the right angle weave will be the opposite. Top, bottom, top, bottom. Going through that amethyst, and then going through that bottom bead, and doing your thread line again, coming out through the rightmost bead. And there we have it. We're back again coming out the top. So we do topaz, amethyst, opal. Now we're going into the opposite side. And you're going to continue this right angle weave as long as you want it to be. I'm going to do mine for about 6 inches, just like Cheryl's here, adding in those colors. And then we're going to get ready to add a little bling to the top before we go in and add some beads along the bottom and the top rows of the right angle. Once you reach your desired length, you're going to add your wire guard. Now, I'm adding my wire guard and I can always add jump rings and clasps. It's kind of up to you what you want to add, or if you already have it thought out. If you're doing a bracelet, you can totally add your clasp right here as well. Coming out the last amethyst rondelle, I'm going to add 2 15-0s in that green color that I'm using, up through that wire guard, down through the other side of the wire guard. And we're going to be coming up and down this bracelet again, so don't worry, we don't need to do more than once through the wire guard right now. 2 more of our 15-0s go on, and we're going into the opposite side of the rondelle. That puts my wire guard on this first side. Here what we're going to do now is have our pattern going down the center of our right angle weave. So in her pattern here, Cheryl used 2 of the 11-0s, then a 2mm crystal. We're going to be using a 3mm crystal here. I'm using the Lavender Opal AB, which kind of gives a blue-purple look. We're going to do it just a tiny bit differently, adding on a 15, then an 11, then our crystal, then an 11, then a 15. You're currently coming out the bottom of that amethyst rondelle. We're going to go into the top of the next amethyst rondelle, and those beads will lay right along the top. Once again, same thing over and over. 15, 11, crystal, 11, 15, coming out the bottom, go into the top. Really simple to add in that crystal look right along the top of the right angle weave. Continue the whole way down your section, adding in those 5 beads that sit right along the top of the rondelles. When you're coming out your last rondelle, you're going to notice, and you should have been noticing, that there's kind of a twist going on. That's because you're constantly pulling the thread in the project downward from one rondelle to the other, so it's naturally turning. Don't worry about that, because we're going to go through and connect the top and the bottom, which is going to give us that curvature. The first thing we're going to do as we get to the other side is put on our other wire guard. So I'm coming out the last rondelle, and we're going to repeat 1 and 2 of our 15s, pick up our wire guard, go back through the wire guard, add 2 more of our 15s, and come back through the rondelle. As you come back through the rondelle, you should be on, or depending on which side you're on, top or bottom, doesn't really matter. You can start with that side. I'm on the bottom side here towards my lavender color, so I'm going to start with the bottom design of the piece. You can start with the top of the design, and if you need to get to that top, just circle around and you can kind of sneak over or back over the wire guard. Actually, we'll start with the top. I'll show you how to sneak back over that way if you need to. Go back through the wire guard, back through the sides of the wire guard here, and then back through the seed beads and out. The nice thing with the right angle weave too is kind of there's always a solution to a problem. And it's really easy to go in and to add some extra beads to it. All right, so now I'm coming out the top basically. I'm gonna move that stop bead a little bit to the side, and we're gonna get ready to come down through our topaz colored beads and pull our beads in closer to the top to create that rounded form. So along the top, the first thing I did coming out those seed beads was add a 15, an 11, and a 15, and went through my first of my topaz beads. In between every topaz beads, I'm going to add 1 of my 3mm crystals here, which is going to start turning the design and make it into a little bit of that ovally shape following your neckline. 4mm bead gets added in that pretty purple color, or sorry, 3mm bead, and then pull. If you notice that the curvature is happening too drastically and you don't want it, just put a 15 on either side of your piece. So you can see here what that curve is happening and how that's establishing that line. We can come through then also and add some seed beads along the top, like Cheryl did with hers, doing those little arching lines. I'm going to continue down the line, adding in my little crystals, which are going to pull those top topazes closer together, creating the curve, and then giving me the opening to put some of my little petals that we're going to be adding to the bottom of the piece. This right angle weave is so fun because there's so many varieties and so many variations that you can do, so many beads that you can use. You can start out the same and make them look totally different. You can see how you're getting kind of that princessy design right there. When you get to the end of this rondelle line, we are going to do the same thing we did on the other side, adding a 15, 11, 15, and we're going to reinforce our wire guard going through our seed beads there, up through the wire guard, and this is going to take us down to the bottom line of the piece. Going through here. It also reinforces the end of our piece, which is awesome. Anytime you have a wire guard, you're getting close to your clasp, your closure, you always want to make sure you have more than one thread path or more than one thread going through there. On the bottom, we're going to do the exact same pattern of 15, 11, 15 through our rondelle, and then we'll get ready, and you can see it's sitting in that curvature now, ready to go. We're going to get ready to add our beads along the bottom of our piece. So for my project, I'm going bold. I decided to use some of the Czech petals versus just that little simple earring drop along the bottom. For the Czech petals, I'm going to drop them down and they are going to overlap one another. I'm not going to bother to do the spaces between the first two rondelles, but I've laid out my petals because these are the purple iris mix in a color range that doesn't look exactly like they're in a color order. All the brasses aren't next to one another, and I'm just going to move those down so I pick them up in the color order that they are. From the first piece here, I'm going to add the 15, 11, crystal, 11, 15, and then go into the next rondelle. That is more space than is needed, so that crystal should sit just recessed a tiny bit along the bottom of the piece. Coming out here then, I want you to add a 15, an 11, a 15, a second 15, and a third 15. We're going to go to the first petal, pick it up, go through the back of the petal. We're going to add 1 and 2 and 3 more of our 15s. Go up through that shared 11-0. That'll create the petal to be front facing, right there. We're going to add a 15 and we're going to sew through the next of our rondelles. And that will get that petal hanging right along the front. We're going to do the same thing going through the bottom here. So again, 15, 11, 1, 2, and 3 of our green 15s. Pick up our next one of our drops. Go through the back of the drop. I always want to be consistent. 1, 2, and 3 of our 15s. Go up through that 11. Bring your needle out of that 11. Grab one more 15 and into your next rondelle. You'll see now how these are going to hang and kind of go right on top of one another and just add a lot of that green and golden and purple iris to the bottom. Continue on doing the same thing for the rest of your little open spaces. To add a little bit more green to the top and to decorate, after finishing all of your petals and going in and doing your 11 with your 15 on the side of the crystal, coming through, going through that wire guard again and reinforcing, coming out your topaz bead. I'm going to show you how to get the loops around, just like Cheryl's design, around the rondelles in case you want to do that at the top or the bottom, those little seed beads. Coming out the rondelle, I want you to add 6 seed beads coming out the bottom, sew into the top, and then those seed beads sit right along the side. Sew through the project, through that next crystal, through the next topaz bead. Bring your thread and needle out, add your 6 seed beads, back through that same topaz bead to add a little bit of that green, and then through the next crystal and out the next topaz. You can see this creates those little arches of your seed beads along the side and just adds a little bit of that color pop. So again, sew through the next 2 beads, grab 6 15s. Once you have those 6 15s in place, through that topaz, through that rondelle, through the next topaz, you can see I'm sewing through 3 at the time, and then I bring those seed beads down and around to the top. This way, when my project is being worn, those seed beads really cap along the top and add some of that greenery to the top of the project as well. I'm going to continue adding all of those greens to the top, and then we'll get ready to tie off our thread, and I'll show you how to add the jump rings in your chain. Once you're done with your final loop around the top, you can keep in mind you can do that along the bottom too if you want more of that green look along the bottom. That's what Cheryl did here, going through the rondelle into the next and out with the loops there. Or you can just keep it plain like I'm going to. The last thing I need to do is get rid of my thread ends and then attach it to my chain. And I'm going with the brass chain to pick up some of those brassy hues and tones in them here. I'm going to go through, add a jump ring after knotting off my thread, and add that chain to both the left and the right side, and just put a simple little lobster in the back. How are you getting rid of your thread? What you're going to want to do is sew underneath a bridge thread or underneath a thread where it's connecting two beads. Make a loop go once, make a loop go twice. If you decorate any more or come down the project, you can also knot on to that starter thread, taking off the stop bead, doing a nice tight pull there, and then burning down your thread end toward the project so you don't see it at all. Here at the start, again, what I'll do is I'll take this off, knot it around the end, and then get ready with the jump rings to attach to my chain. Once you finish going in and burning off your thread, you're just taking those jump rings and adding your chain on, and then adding your jump ring on the end to attach to the necklace to finish off your design. The thing that I love about this is they're the exact same pattern. They have a totally different look with that right angle weave. This helps to get your creativity flowing, hopefully, for how you can embellish right angle weave, how the beads line up laterally with the holes along the bottom, how you can do a little bit of fringe on the outside or a little bit of loops with your seed beads along the top, and really make this same pattern look totally different based on the supplies you pick. Thanks so much for joining me in this floral rondelle necklace. Remember, I can't wait to see all of your designs in our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. There are so many variations that can be made based on the beads that you hang down, how you do the bottom, the top, and it's really exciting to see all those variations when people do them. Remember, if you haven't yet, subscribe so you don't miss anything from us here at Potomac Beads. Check that link down below for the beads that we used in this design. And thanks to Cheryl for another beautiful example. As always, stay tuned for more videos from us here at Potomac Beads.